Good, good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So a time when you felt successful as a student.
Oh, indeed. Okay, so to kind of explain like when I felt most successful as a student was, I think, the moment that I actually identified that I was actually a learner. And that may sound stupid. Like, of course, I spent like a good chunk of my life, in high school when I was learning stuff, and I recognize that. And not just formal, but also informal learning as well along the way. And but it was when I got to college and started, and the moment that I actually felt like I might have some like academic potential, I think, was different. And so I went to university right out of high school, first generation college student, went to an in-state school because I found out that was a way to go. Like if you graduated from high school in that state, you could go to a state institution. So I was like, good, sign me up. How far away can I get from my hometown? And so that's what I did. And then I spent the first couple of years doing what a lot of students right out of high school do, which is kind of figuring out who you are. And I, drank a lot. You know what I mean? And like that sort of thing. And didn't do so well and ended up with like a 1.79 or something in my GPA and had to petition to keep going to school. I mean, I was learning things, but I didn't know how to pull it all together. And it was still a really important period of my life because I was basically sloughing off a good chunk of the baggage that came from my hometown and that sort of thing. So it was really important development for me. But it didn't say a lot in terms of what was of success at that moment. Right, I was like at a 1.9. For all practical purposes, I was not a successful student. But I wanted to be. And then one summer, I decided to stick around. Maybe it was the second summer. I don't know. The chronology of things are useless for me. But I do know that there was a summer that came up, and it was before I started doing really well in school. And I chose to take a class that was a team-taught kind of special class for the summer. And it was taught by a cultural anthropology instructor and a sociology instructor, and they were partners, and it was so it was this team taught class, and it was culture and sexuality. So of course it was a topic that was interesting and very fun, but the way that it was taught was different. It was smaller, so it was the first class where there was a lot more discussion based, and we brought in, there were speakers because they weren't teaching in the summertime. We were able to come out from like, I think Purdue or something. Just these amazing folks, and we got to like have barbecues together and just geek out on these topics. And I liked being able to make the connections, those big ideological jumps between like the sociology components and the cross-cultural components from the cultural anthropology piece. And I was like, this is really a fascinating game, and I got excited about ideas. And I did well in the class, and I think it was during that summer that I actually had a way of identifying a salient role for me as a learner. That I could actually do this stuff, and I could hang with some really smart folks, and maybe even contribute something. And it was with that shifted from this. So again, it was an identity piece. I'd been working on one part of identity, and then it shifted during that summer, and it became something that was more about, like, that was the traditional successful student. So from then on, I did well, and I went from that 1.79 or whatever it was that I had, and ended up, I think I graduated with like a 3.4, which I'm pretty happy with. That was great. But anyway, so I was able to meet some of those benchmarks of student success that the institution may have wanted me to have. But those didn't matter near as much as that moment where I was able to identify myself as a learner, and that meant something to me, and it was mine and not somebody else's.
This may be wrapped up in some of what you just said, but is there a specific time you felt like a failure as a student?
I still have dreams. I'm almost 40, and I still have dreams that I'm showing up to class and my paper's not done. Right? Like, so I think they were probably, I don't know, I don't think I ever felt like a failure. I didn't feel like I belonged. Okay, so when I first went to university, I still didn't feel like I belonged there. I felt like I belonged in the culture, right? But I didn't necessarily feel like I belonged in the classroom or in the process. Actually, it was the not having an academic advisor, not knowing how the system worked at all, not understanding it. I went in as an anthropology student, and then I was there for like 4 years, and one of my main instructors asked me when I was graduating, and I had no idea, And she says, well, come into my office, and Yeah, actually, this is when I felt like a failure. This is actually it. And it was, but again, I'd already felt like I was a learner at this point. I'd already identified that this was an important piece that I had something to offer. I had a voice, I had a brain. But then when I was asked how I actually get the degree and how I complete, then I had no concept of what I was doing. She brought me into her office and said, let's go through your academic plan. And she says, you know, you're an anthropology student and not a sociology student, but I've been taking your classes for years, right? And I said, oh, yeah, well, I figured, I was taking sociology classes. I was a sociology student, right? And she said, no, that's not how it works. And so we went back and looked at what I needed to do, and it was going to take an extra 6 months for me to graduate. So I think it took me maybe it took me 5 years. I don't remember. Like I said, the chronology is not really there. But it took me longer than what the institution wanted me to do to complete my bachelor's degree. And I didn't understand, and there was minor requirements and things that I just didn't know because I didn't have an advisor. I did not know where to look for those things, and that's where I felt like a failure. I did not know how to navigate that system, and that felt awful. And I was in tears in her office because I was like, I didn't know how to pull all that together, and there were decisions that needed to be made, like, what's the purpose of this degree? What am I doing with it? And all of a sudden, I was faced with all these questions that I had not been faced with because all I wanted to do was learn cool stuff and be engaged, right? So then we had to figure out some of these extra classes, some of the graduation requirements. To this day, I still don't know what they are. I have no idea how I got the degree. I'm an academic advisor now. I build degree plans for people every day. And I have no idea how I got my bachelor's degree. I mean, I remember stuff, it's really great, but I don't know the details of how I got that degree. And so we tried some different things. So my instructor was like, well, help me, started to get me on that idea, like, well, you're going to go on to graduate school, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I've done some research before, and I presented at a conference, and I'm like, I don't want to just sit here and write sociology research papers for other sociologists to read and not actually do any good for anybody. That was kind of the feeling that I had at the time. So she tried on a bunch of things. She's like, well, why don't you try out journalism? And I took one class, and it was like, here's how you write stupid to people. That's what I got out of it anyway. Here's how you dumb down your writing so people can understand. I'm like, this is not what I want to do, And then it was like, anyway, a variety of things like that. And it ended up, I'm on some random tangent now. I forgot what I was talking about. But the point of it is that I had to make these decisions, and I would have liked to have understood how to navigate the system, how to understand what the function and the purpose of the degrees, or the function, the purpose of individual graduation requirements, so I could have used them strategically to my advantage because I had no idea, and it was a lot of existential and emotional stress. And so and the end result is when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I had this degree where I learned a bunch. I have no idea what the utility of it was. And frankly, I didn't even think that I had any skills. I'd done some really great work. I did some research with a professor. I did some organizing for a couple of human rights conferences and drove human rights workers around the Pacific Northwest. And not once did I have any concept of how to link the work that I was doing there with a future career, with networking with other folks, and able to grow. Once they handed me that diploma, which in fact I actually didn't know they didn't hand you a diploma when you graduated until I was actually there on stage that day. That's how much I didn't know about this, right? And that was a real disservice because when I was done, it was really difficult because I was really lost. And I think that that's a really common experience, especially for a lower middle class white male. It's like, okay, great, I've got this bachelor's degree now, and I don't need to make a ton of money, so let's help, let's do something. And then it's like, that's not how that works, dude. So anyway, so I guess the question was, when did I feel like a failure? The failure was being able to pull this together, navigate that system, and understand the utility of what I was doing. It was never really in my abilities as a thinker or as a learner or somebody who was producing any material or anything like that.
Do you have anything that you tell other students who feel like they don't belong at college?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you say to them?
Well, I think I tell them straight up that this was built for them. That's what the community college is there for, to provide that sort of access to education for all members of the community, regardless of where they're starting. Now, I recognize that there's still access problems, but that's what it's built for. And that's where it starts. And then to try to acknowledge, by listening to where they are at with their identity, where those intersections do not meet, Where does it not feel like they belong? And on occasion, I would like to use stories of people I've met along the way, or of myself or my family members or my colleagues, that sort of explore a similar identity, and to sort of illustrate that there is a place for them to belong, and try to acknowledge the importance of them bringing a different voice to the curriculum, and to that classroom mix, and then eventually out there into whatever they're going to do with it, And so I think I think it's a very explicit thing.
Anything else you want to say about student success?
I don't think that we have enough tape, and I think that I'm done. Yeah, thank you though.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Awesome.